Hi, I'm Adam Geis.
I'm David Lurch.
We're hosts of the EdTech Distilled podcast, which is a part of the Education Podcast Network.
Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood, to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAir@5 or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected.
Hey, PLN, Saturday, January 28th,
2023.
Out at Costco, sitting in the parking lot, and this morning as I was doing some errands, I listened to an new to me podcast that came up in my Listen Now suggestions in my Apple Podcast catcher, and I took a listen because the title caught my attention. The title, Tackling the Threat of AI in the Secondary Classroom. This was season 5, episode 136 of the Brave New Classroom, I think it's called. Brave New. I got that wrong. But anyhow, I will have it in the show notes, and it'll be in the I'll put the tweet link in there properly in the tweet. So this is with Marie Morris and Amanda Cardenas, and they bring to the front this thing that's bursting and going on with ChatGPT and how AI can be a threat to what we do in our classrooms. And you know what? We have had threats in the past. They bring up some really good points that, we had Cole's Notes back in my day that were a threat. We had things like, Grammarly's a threat because it takes away the need to learn grammar, things like that. So they talk about these things, very surface at this point, but some of their observations that they have had about AI and ChatGPT in their classroom, and even how it has helped them. We have these tools, we can use them for evil, and we always go to the evil right away, but how can we use them for good? Krista Barber and Shanna Raman, they are other educators that have blogs, and they were guests on this podcast. And Brave New Teaching, and while they were talking about how they have utilized ChatGPT to maybe get at report card comments and get some ideas about juices flowing for prompts for creative writing, things like that, is it cheating or is it using our technology to our advantage? And I think it is using our technology to our advantage. So this is where we're at right now. I want you to take a listen to Brave New Teaching, season 5, episode 136. And this is a new to me podcast. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you, ladies. It was fantastic hearing from you. And I am excited about continuing to explore AI in my classroom. Peace out. Bye. Hey, PLN. Happy January 31st, 2023. As I'm out walking for Fresh Air at 5, I'm reflecting on the fact that it's the end of January. That means that 1/12 of 2023 is gone. What'd you do this month? Well, I can look back and see what I've done this month. And I've done teaching, I've done assessing, I've done culture building in my school, I've done snowshoeing, I've done watching TV, I've done spending time with I've done a lot of things. And I hope that you've done the same kinds of things. Not necessarily the same as me, but similar in having a well-rounded space in January. As we get to the end of January and it's report card season, that changes the focus. I do a lot more of looking and thinking about my students right now as I'm writing report cards, because I have to put down something that's meaningful, that's going to hang on for a while for them. All right. As I'm walking this morning, I listened to episode 96 of the Tom Schimmer Show. And Tom, good morning to you. I hope you're doing well. It was fantastic to hear your voice. This 2-week length between podcasts,
I'm getting used to it. It makes the anticipation of the next podcast there. So that's a good thing. Yeah. And, in this episode, you talk about the cost of not changing and, staying with the status quo and not advancing and future thinking. That's a challenge because it does cost. What does it cost? Take a listen to what Tom has to say about that. All right, moving along. I got one more thing coming up, so just hang on. I'll be right back. One more thing for January 31st, 2023. Continuing my thoughts on episode 96 of the Tom Schimmer podcast. Tom talks with a colleague and friend who lives just down the road from myself and him, Tim Stevenson, out of Aldergrove, BC. And Tim is a teacher, podcaster, author, and downright cool guy as he shares his life with his students and brings relevancy to the theory of what they're learning in their classroom as he grows students in his astronomy and science classes to be critical thinkers. What are the costs of taking what we know and applying them to the world? What can we do with that? What's the value of battery technology? What's the value of taking care of our oceans and the impact and connectedness of all these things? Tim, great to hear you talk. And I've heard you talk a number of times back at TEDx and other places and other podcasts and on Science 360 podcasts. And even as we sat and drove to breakfast with him and Tim, KV, and Tom Schimmer and Liv Chan back in December that Tom mentions, we talked and we connected. And I appreciate hearing what you have to say because you're doing this for 30 years and every day is a new day. And that is awesome and that's impressive and that is encouraging that I can do this for a really long time. Tim Stevenson, he brings relevancy to the learning that the students are doing. What's that emotional connection? What gets them charged up, fired up, excited about the learning they're doing? And what kind of assessment can we do with that? What should we do with that? What meets the students' needs? Those test writers, they like writing tests because that's a way they can, lift more weights in the gym. Or, those that do projects, they have an emotional connection to something. That's awesome. So thanks, Tim, for your thoughts. Appreciate it. And I got one more thing coming up. Okay, bye. The last thing for January 31st, 2023. Continuing my thoughts on episode 96 of the Tom Schimmer podcast as Tom talks about the cost of not changing, has a fantastic interview with Tim Stevenson, Astro Stevenson, and then finally he digs into the next generation assessment practices. And he talks about this out of the new book that he has with two other authors. Can't recall their names, but you can look in the show notes so you can pre-order that book. And so, Tom, you talk about these 7 different traits of next generation assessment standards, and that's not, maybe that's exactly what it's called, but the idea is that things are authentic, they're relevant, they have meaning, they have transferability, and that's what we hope for our students, is that the things that we're teaching them they would take beyond our classroom. But how do we teach them those things explicitly, as opposed to, I hope it just becomes automatic and they kind of just get it and the light bulb comes on one day. Right now I'm teaching video production to my middle school students and looking at the steps and parts of pre-production, production, and post-production. And I'm like, well, the point of this is it's not to make the video that I'm asking you to make. But the point of it is to understand the process of video production. I think they're starting to get it. I think they are, because, they are digging into this project and they're spending the time on their storyboard, which is, not the most exciting thing as opposed to holding the camera and shooting. We've been 3 weeks into this now, and maybe I'm dragging it out, but I don't know, but maybe not. But we haven't even touched a camera yet, and we're talking about video production. So, looking forward to teaching some more transferable skills today as I see them in school. All right, Tom and Tim, I appreciate you guys, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. And maybe we got to hit the Fox for wings and beers. All right, boys. Talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye. Hey PLN, it is Thursday, February 2nd. Welcome to February, and we are into the second month of the year. It's a short one, so that's a good one. I mean, is it good that it's short, or are we excited about February because it's a short one, or are we bummed out because we don't get as many days this month and it's kind of taken away because it's only 28 days long? I don't know. It's a funny month. There's a lot that's going to happen this month for in my space and at school, and the podcast is going to carry on here, so that's a consistent thing for me. And yes, I'm grateful to be in February. It's been a full week. You might have noticed that there's been some spits and starts in the week for me about getting out the door. I didn't yesterday. We got snow, and I didn't feel comfortable walking out in the weather because it was icy, so I stayed home. Report cards are being completed, so that's a good thing. Takes a lot for me to muster it up and get it done, because it's one of those things that I struggle to do, but we can do. Okay, enough of that. I have to bring you episode 42 of Evolving with Gratitude with Lainey Rowell, and Lainey has on guest Marva Hinton, who is a journalist and an editor for Edutopia. And it was great to hear Marva and Lainey talk as an editor-author relationship, and how they've grown to know each other over the past couple of years of Lainey writing for Edutopia and Marva editing her work, and having that back channel conversation before we get to see what comes out. Articles just don't happen. They happen in collaboration. And so that's fantastic. Moving through the world with the magic words, please and thank you, is the title of the episode. It's important that we do that. Take a listen to this. It's a heartwarming episode to listen to. So Lainey and Marva, thanks so much for sharing. Appreciate it. I am grateful for the Evolving with Gratitude podcast. All right, have a great day. Bye. Hey there, one more thing for January. No, it's February 2nd, 2023. I'm still getting down the 2023, and now I got to change the month and get the month right when I write the date for things. So yeah, it's coming along. It's a work in progress. As I am continuing to listen here this morning, I took on Teacher Champions with Brian Martin, and he brings us on episode 161. Why would students want to be successful if they can't remember what success feels like? And he teaches grade 2. So working with our K-2 teacher and students at my school, I can appreciate where you're coming from a little bit, Brian. That's not my primary job, but it is part of my job to work and do projects. So I understand, working with these little people that, they're young. They haven't had a lot of history of success possibly in education. And, they're in grade 2 and they are, coming to school because, well, that's what my thing is that I have to do. And it might be an obligation or it might be an opportunity. And it's up to us teachers to provide opportunities and to provide engaging learning environments. So, even as adults, why would we want to be successful if we can't even remember what success feels like? Can you imagine if we were standing here today without success in our lives? And, well, why do we need to keep working? Why do we need to keep going forward? Part of the way we do that is we watch sports and we watch success and failure on TV. And we, celebrate the wins and we cry at the losses and things like that. But, it's about reflection. It's about that reflection. So, Ryan, I appreciate you sharing the quote from Dr. Brad Johnson's book. I can't remember the title. You'll have to go to the show notes for Teacher Champions episode 161 to catch that. But, taking pause today to go, how do we celebrate the successes and wins? I might ask my students that today. What's a win you've had lately and why is that important to you? All right, that's all I got. Have a fabulous Wednesday. Actually, it's Thursday. See, I'm even wrong on that. Peace out. Bye-bye. Hey PLN, happy Friday, February 3rd, 2023. It's Friday. We made it to Friday. I'm thankful it's Friday. Had a fabulous week this week, working with my students, teaching, video production. We are working on the yearbook, making some choices about fonts for the yearbook, and how do you do that, so that's a fun thing that we're working on. And yes, we are making progress, and on my online students, some of them are finishing, others are continuing into next semester. So it's been a full and rich week, a good week, lots going on. But here we are. It's Friday morning, up for Fresh Air at 5, and I listened to episode 130 of Got Tech, the podcast. The guys out in New Jersey, Eric and Nick, bring us a jam-packed episode, as they always do. But this one is about, should Canva take over the EdTech Edu universe or something? It's a title like that. I'm talking about Canva, and gents, I'm pleased to say that since our conversation on that one podcast, Smackdown that we had back in May of, I don't know, was it 21 or 20? It was a bit ago when I was on your podcast debating Adobe Spark over against Canva. This guy here is shifting to Canva a lot, so quite a bit. I do have my educator account with Canva, and we do creations of things with Canva. And just listening to your episode right now, I've seen a number of these apps that are attached to it. Just discovered those actually this week myself. Have not implemented any of them yet, but my goodness, Canva's doing a lot of stuff. One thing that you didn't mention that was pretty nifty is that you can take a video and remove the background of a video in their video tool. What? How can you do that? We can do that with images everywhere, every day of the week, in other places, and even in Canva, but removing the background of a video. Okay, so go take a listen to this. Take a look at their show notes, because they've got things like QR codes. They've got text to pictures, so like AI kind of things. They've got presentations, Canva docs, etc., etc., etc. Shout out to Mr. Scott Nunes of Canva. Peace out. Happy Friday. Bye-bye. The last thing for Friday, February 3rd, 2023, I took on listening this morning to a couple more episodes of Prairie Rose Possibilities out of Southern Alberta with host Cami Cannikins. And big shout out to Cami, faithful supporter of Fresh Air 5. And this podcast is her approach to sharing the Prairie Rose Possibilities projects that are going around the Prairie Rose district in Southern Alberta at all the various schools. And in episode 3.11, she talks with Jamie, who's a teacher and coach of the archery program at Warren Pierce School, and how they have been having an archery program. They were in the local curling rink when ice was off, but then when ice went back in, because curling is really important in Alberta too, they lost the ability to access their range. So they moved their range back to the school, and from there to the school, and now they have the opportunity to have 3 different sets of students through the year in their expos to come and do archery. That's fantastic. They went to provincials and represented their school, and it's growing in Southern Alberta at the other Prairie Rose schools that they're having coaches training so that they can grow their program. Fantastic, Jamie and Cami, thanks for sharing. And then in episode 3.12 from Foremost School, which is near, don't know, I think it's near Owen, I think. Nope, not sure. But Cami talks with Corey, the principal there, about their farm project, the Foremost Agricultural Resources modules, and how students are, involved at that K-12 school in growing vegetables and fruit. They had watermelons come this year. They're growing lettuce because, well, that's a hot commodity right now, and hoping for in the future to have being able to do a farmer's market and have community members come and buy produce that was grown by the students in their community. Fantastic to hear, and so take a listen. Great to hear you, Cami, sharing opportunities in your district. That's another good reason to podcast. Peace out. Happy Friday. Bye.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.